Okay, so let's go ahead and learn about inverse property of multiplication. But before we do that, let's go ahead and review a couple of vocabulary words. The first vocabulary word I'm going to talk about is reciprocal. Okay, and basically what a reciprocal is, it's two numbers with a product that equals 1. Two numbers with a product that is equal to 1. Okay. So what does that really mean? Now, let me show you in this example. It would be like taking 2/3. So that's my fraction. Okay. I'm going to multiply it, because that's the word product, by the reciprocal. The reciprocal would be 3/2. Okay. So basically I've taken 2/3 and I've inverted it. So I flipped it over upside down. Okay. When I multiply these, I get 2 times 3, which is 6. 3 times 2, which is a 6. 6/6 actually simplifies down to 1. So 2/3 has a reciprocal of 3/2 because the product, when I multiplied them, was equal to 1. All right. Coefficient is our next vocabulary term. Okay. Basically, it's a numerical factor of a term that contains a variable. All right. So a numerical factor, aka a number of a term that contains a variable. Variable just basically means a letter. Okay. So example would be in 3x, 3 is your coefficient, x is your variable. Okay, now that we've defined those vocabulary words of a reciprocal and a coefficient, so let's go ahead and actually do this inverse property of multiplication in action, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a problem. So like example, I have 3/4, and then we're going to have c equals 18, okay? So anytime I have an equation where I have a variable, my goal is to typically try to figure out what the variable is equal to. So I'm going to isolate it. The best way to do that is to get rid of whatever's happening to the variable. In this case, 3/4 is being multiplied by c, okay? So what I need to do, I could divide by 3/4, but that would make dividing by fractions a little messy. So what I do, instead of dividing by 3/4, what I do is I multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction. So I'm going to multiply by 3/4, which is, the reciprocal of 3/4, which is 4/3. And because I do it to one side in my equation, I have to keep a balance and I have to multiply it by the other side. All right. When I take 4/3 times 3/4, as we said in our notes, the product is going to be 1. So I end up with 1 times c. Okay. Over here, when I take 18 times 4/3, I end up, if I write this as a fraction and multiply fraction, I get 18 times 4, which is 72. 1 times 3 gives me 3. Well, I need to realize that when I take 1 times c, that really is just c. So I don't need to take this step. When I get 1 times c, I can just write c. 72 divided by 3, when I take that, 3 goes into 72 24 times. So I end up with an answer of 24. So c is equal to 24. All right. So I'm going to show you in another example. Okay. So we have 6 equals 1/12m. Okay. So again, I got to look at the variable. What's happening to the variable? In this case, it's being multiplied by 1/12. So I need to multiply by the reciprocal since I have a fraction here. What's the reciprocal of 1/12? It would be 12/1. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 12, the reciprocal 12/1. When I take 1/12 times 12/1, I end up with 1. 1 times m is m. Over here, I basically have 12/1, which is also 12. So really the problem I have is it's 12 times 6. Well, what's 12 times 6? It's 72. So my answer is 72 equals m. I can always double check my answer by putting it back into this equation. So if I put 72 back in the equation, so I'd have 6 equals 1/12 times my answer of m, which was 72. When I take, in my calculator, I take 1/12 and I multiply it by 72, I get 6. And so then I ask myself, does 6 equal 6? Yes, it does. So that means, that lets me know I have the correct answer of 72. Okay, so now that I've just learned how to do that, I got one more example I want to show you here, okay? We're going to have 1 and 1/2 equals, 1 and 1/2 s equals 16 and 1/2, okay? So in this case, I have a mixed number in both cases, or I'm using a mixed number. Anytime we're using a mixed number, what we want to do is we want to change it into an improper fraction. So I'm going to change 1 and 1/2 into an improper fraction. So I'm going to take 1 times 2 plus 1, and that'll give me 3. I keep the denominator at 2, and so I get 3 over 2. So I have 3 over 2, s equals 16 and 1/2 as an improper fraction would be 33 over 2, because I took 16 times 2, which is 32, plus 1 is 33. The original denominator was 2. So here's my problem. I got 3 over 2 times s equals 33 over 2. Just like before, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So because this is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of what's being multiplied by s, which in this case is 2 over 3. That's the reciprocal. I'm going to multiply this side by 2 over 3. 2 over 3 times 3 over 2 gives me 1. 1 times s gives me s. This is where some of you, you can do your cross simplifying if you remember how to cross simplify when multiplying. Otherwise, the rest of you are going to have to go ahead and multiply 33 over 2 times 2 over 3. So 33 times 2 is 66. 2 over 3 is 6. So I end up with 66 over 6, which I divide both of those if I simplify that down by 6. 66 divided by 6 is 11. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So 11 over 1. So I get an answer of s is equal to 11.